Hey everybody. So this is not a subject that I would ordinarily choose to focus on. We fix the hair there really quickly. Okay, moving on. This is not a subject that I find particularly relevant to my interests, something that I would, under most circumstances, spend a whole lot of time focusing on. But as this Tara Reade allegation escalated, and as the coverage of it got increasingly bad, especially amongst progressive media, I felt, you know what, I got to do my journalistic due diligence here, look into it substantially, and provide you with my at least preliminary journalistic and logical assessment. And so that's what I've done. I have a piece that's relatively long. It's got a lot of reporting in it that came out yesterday in The Spectator. Obviously, I'll link to that in the description box, so please read it for yourself. But I'm going to highlight some of the main points here. First, let's talk about the notion of credibility. When I say that claims are not credible, I'm not asserting with absolute metaphysical certitude that the claims are false. I'm not saying that it's even knowable whether the claims can be said to be true or false with total certitude. It's not. However, what you have to do if you're a rational person is ascertain the greatest possible amount of information that could shed light on the credibility or lack thereof of a given claim. How do you think it works in criminal trials? If this claim, and this is Tara Reade asserting that Joe Biden raped her, that's the word that Joe Biden is, that's the word that Tara Reade uses to describe what she alleges Joe Biden did to her. Okay? And let me just say this ahead of time. I know people in the comments are going to get really angry and they're going to automatically downvote and they're going to, just accuse me of being some kind of shill for Joe Biden as if that's remotely consistent with what I've said or done over the course of my entire life. I'm not a supporter of Joe Biden. I'm voting for Joe Biden in all likelihood. I don't plan to anyway. I'm not badgering anybody to vote for Joe Biden. I don't particularly care about Joe Biden on any real level, but I do care about the cultural and political climate that enables the proliferation of really dangerous and toxic weaponization of claims like this. Okay? And so if you don't want to listen to me, if you don't want to read what I wrote, if you don't want to have at least something approaching an open mind, if you just want to react emotionally, then go ahead. If you buy into the believe all women standard, which I never have, whether it's regarding Republicans, Democrats, anybody, that's your prerogative. Go ahead. Then, if your standard for assessing the credibility or the plausibility or the legitimacy of claims is your belief that something is true, then you should go and stay in the field of religion. You should be a cleric. You should just stay in that field because you're in a faith-based realm. I don't operate in a faith-based realm. Okay? So I did a very long journalistic inquiry into these claims. And one of the initial claims that sort of coincided with Tara Reade coming out with her latest round of allegations was that they were corroborated. Allegedly, we were told there was corroboration which substantiated her claim. So, you know what? I said, let me look a little more in depth into whether these claims of corroboration are actually accurate. Number one, So Tara Reade initially said that there were 3 people total who were corroborating witnesses or sources. That's what she initially said when she first came out with the rape allegation on March 25th on the Katie Halper podcast. She said that the potential corroborating sources were her mother, her brother, and an anonymous friend. And again, if you don't like me going through these details, then gee whiz, you must not like our justice system in the sense of having an adversarial court process, because that is what questions of this nature are necessarily entailed by that. Anyway, she said that there were 3 potential corroborating sources. One of them was an anonymous, what was the mother, who is deceased. So that's out. People cite a old piece of video footage from a Larry King episode in August 1993 that appears to corroborate the mother calling in and saying that her daughter had, quote, problems in a prominent senator's office. Now, I think it actually is plausible. Can't say it with absolute certainty, but it seems plausible that that actually was her mother calling into the Larry King show. But if you listen carefully to what the purported mother says in that phone call, the mother says nothing about sexual assault or rape. The mother merely says that her daughter had, quote, problems in a prominent senator's office, but out of respect, quote, for that senator, the daughter has declined so far to publicize the issues. Okay, so again, Tara Reade says that she told her mother that she was raped by Joe Biden. And then the mother goes and calls Larry King and says that the daughter is not publicizing that out of, quote, respect for the senator. Okay. At a certain point, sometimes you have to adopt like a common sense standard when assessing stuff like this. Like, there's no chance in hell that any prosecutor would ever bring these charges, ever. Okay? And I know we're not in a courtroom, I know we're not dealing with legal standards, but I'm just telling you that there is zero chance whatsoever this would ever be brought forward in terms of criminal charges. Okay? But the mother's deceased, so we can't inquire with the mother. Then we have an anonymous friend who Tara Reade claims that she contemporaneously told about the rape. Okay? Now, if you go back in 2019, April 2019, when Tara Reade was initially telling her version of the story, where she explicitly absolved Joe Biden of any sexual misconduct. She says that her story was not one of sexual misconduct. She wrote that herself in her self-written Medium post that was later republished at The Union, which is a newspaper in Nevada County, California. She told this to national media sources like Fox and the Washington Post. She said this over and over again, April 2019, that she was not alleging any sexual misconduct of Joe Biden. But she was telling a different version of the story, which is that Joe Biden, according to her, had engaged in inappropriate touching. And that was consistent with what others were saying at the time, and was consistent with Joe Biden's public behavior. It's obvious that Joe Biden he's handsy. He touches people in a non-sexualized manner, but nonetheless in a manner that some people find inappropriate. Okay, fine. And that was the version of the story that Tara Reade initially told. And then if you look at her initial tellings of those stories, such as with the Nevada newspaper, there's an anonymous source who supposedly corroborates that version of events. Okay? And there's a corroborating source who's anonymous who is also cited in other accounts of this initial non-sexualized version of the story. And then fast forward a year, Fast forward a year, and Tara Reade comes out starting on March 25th with a graphically sexualized version of the story that includes outright rape. And a corroborating source, also anonymous, is cited as verifying this version of events, this new one. So you could be reasonably certain that it is the same individual. Can't say that with total certainty because we don't know for sure, but that is in all likelihood the case. And there's a podcast that this person, who's anonymous, did with Katie Halper. So this person isn't putting her name to anything, but you can listen to a long audio interview that she did. And she specifically asked if she remembers being told by Tara Reade about the alleged rape. And this person says that she purposely, quote, repressed the memory of being told about that, and only recently did this memory resurface. Okay, so she's claiming repressed memory. Okay. She's also saying that she didn't commit it to memory. She didn't commit being told about this alleged rape to memory. Okay? So you're saying that this is corroboration, and the person who's the purported corroborator, says directly that she does not have a memory of it. She does not have a non-repressed memory of it. She had to resurrect the memory recently. And the commenters can keep claiming that I'm shilling for Biden. I'm not shilling for Biden. I don't support Joe Biden. How many more times can I say that? I was told this same junk that I'm shilling for Trump when I would go through various histrionic Trump criticisms and show why they're not accurate, whether it was Russiagate or anything else. So you can stuff that talking point you know where. Okay? So this person says she has no direct memory of being told about the alleged rape. So that's the supposed corroborator. Then, the third alleged corroborator is the brother, Tara Reade's brother, Colin Moulton, who actually wasn't even cited as a corroborator by Tara Reade a year ago. That he was added later when Tara Reade appeared on this initial Katie Halper podcast, March 25th. Okay? And then, so of course, when the brother is cited as a corroborating source, you go and talk to him, right? And according to the initial press accounts of Colin Moulton, the brother, talking to the media, he initially told a different story that didn't include any sexual assault or rape, and then later on, he contacted them to clarify that he had heard of something about hands being put under the clothes. Okay? So the story changed, and in the interim, Colin Moulton conferred with somebody called Nathan Robinson, who's the editor of a small left-wing journal called Current Affairs, which actually I have written for in the past. And Nathan Robinson became one of the most vociferous promoters of this story, in hopes, according to Nathan Robinson, that it would revive the Bernie campaign. This was in late March, and sink Biden. So that was Nathan Robinson's explicit motivation in amplifying the story relentlessly, that it would achieve a political goal. That's what he said. Meanwhile, Colin Moulton is not talking to the media recently, and his story was quickly revised. Okay, so that's the third corroborator. And then later on, we have a fourth supposed corroborator. And initially, Tara Reade said only 3 people were told about it. Then a fourth comes, and it's her neighbor named Linda Lacasse, who claims that she was told about the rape 2 or 3 years after the fact. It occurred allegedly in 1993. Linda Lacasse said it occurred in 1995 or 1996 when she was told about the alleged rape. Okay, so you go and listen carefully to what Linda Lacasse says, and she's talking to this reporter named Rich McHugh, and Rich McHugh asks her when this story came on her radar again, meaning when did Linda Lacasse first have this story come back onto her radar, so to say. And Linda Lacasse said she had forgotten about it. Okay, so again, let's apply the common sense test. If you were told by a friend that they were raped in a public hallway by a prominent U.S. senator who then went on to become vice president for 8 years and then run for president again as a front runner, do you think you'd forget being told about that? Did you? And no, the neighbor did not come out on her own. Again, you people need to look into this stuff critically. You have to have a critical mind. Okay? Look at what the neighbor said. The neighbor said that Tara Reade contacted her on the phone prior to her coming forward and expressed a, quote, need for this woman to come forward as a corroborating source. That's what she says. So that's not a reliable corroboration. A corroboration is when you can identify somebody who independently affirms a particular story. That's not what happened. According to the very individual who is alleged to be a corroborating source. And no, this was not a neighbor being told at the time. Again, you people want to believe this. Some people want to believe this. And so they jettison their critical faculties and they interpret information that fits a preordained narrative because they want to believe that it's true for some truly sick reason. I mean, if you want to believe that a rape occurred, you're sick. If a rape did occur and there were reliable evidence for it, that would be a tragedy. Rape is a grave crime. You should not cheer a rape occurring. And you shouldn't use you shouldn't weaponize a political agenda in order to create the impression wrongly that a rape occurred if it didn't. That's grotesque. Okay, so those are some corroborating sources that weren't actually corroborating. I mean, the problem with a lot of this is that the people who amplified the claims initially didn't do any journalistic due diligence at all. They just put out the claims on the internet, didn't check anything, didn't verify anything, had a preordained goal in terms of harming Biden. I don't care if Biden's harmed. I'm not supporting Joe Biden. Do you understand? And didn't bother checking anything. And that's really dangerous and lazy. And so here's some more. I went and looked into it myself. So I got in touch, for example, with a woman who's an attorney in Aptos Hills, California, whom Tara Reade lived with in 2018. Tara Reade went to this woman's house. She runs sort of a boarding house. Her name is Kelly Klett. You can go look her up. She's an attorney. She put her name to it. She's on the record. Kelly Klett says that Tara Reade attempted to manipulate her, that she presented a false version of events to her in order to gain her trust and get into the house. This is what she says. Sorry. And this woman, Kelly Klett, is a lawyer and has represented, she says, many women who are victims of domestic violence pro bono. And Tara Reade never mentioned her episode of domestic violence to this woman, and where she could have gotten help, and she didn't mention it. Instead, she began, at least according to Kelly Klett, to manipulate her and deceive her. And once she moved out, Kelly Klett recounts getting a phone call from Tara Reade after she was telling this initial non-sexualized version of the story in April 2019, trying to, quote, plant a story. That's what Kelly Klett says Tara Reade did. Tried to plant a story with her so that she hoped this woman could become a corroborator later on. And now there are at least 5 people who independently say that Tara Reade manipulated them, deceived them, told them a false version of events, distorted the truth. And none of these people, as far as I can tell, have any political motive. The ones that I spoke to insist that they do not. And this is not a character assassination. This is not a smear. This is reasonable journalistic inquiry. How do you propose evaluating the plausibility of this claim, if not journalistic inquiry? Give me your suggestion if you're offended by this. Because it has to be done somehow. Right? Or not? I don't know. I mean, people are running around claiming like they know with total certainty that this is true. So you have to look into it. Sorry. And that's what I did. The claims lack credibility. And that's just the reality. If you don't like it, if you think I have some other, like a pro-Biden shill agenda, you're out of your mind. You can go find many instances in which I've been harshly critical of Joe Biden. Tara Reade's lawyer, of course, who we had to get in touch with for the story, not making her available for interviews anymore. And what are they doing? They're not responding to any specifics. The lawyer didn't respond to any specific details in the article. What he did instead was denounce the article in general terms for harming, quote, survivors and being a character assassination smear. Most of the stuff is in the public record. Most of the stuff is just either in the public record or me talking to people who had direct personal experience with Tara Reade. So if that's a character assassination, then, sorry. That's just typical journalistic practice. But he doesn't respond to any specific details because he can't. And there are others there's been other reporting which supports the assessment that I put forward in this item. And so I'm going to, again, encourage you to please read the full story. I will link to it. It's relatively long. It's detailed. It's as meticulous as I could possibly make it. There's information in there that I haven't touched on in this stream. And you know what? If you hate me now over this, that's fine. I don't cater to an audience. I never have, and I never will. If that's what I did, I never would have taken the critical perspective that I did on, for example, Russiagate or various other controversies of the Trump era, because it would have been. It wasn't what my audience at one point wanted to hear. So I don't cater to them. And if you have a legitimate criticism of anything in this article or anything I've said, present it. Don't just lash out in anger. Present a reasoned rebuttal or counter argument or something, and I'll address it. Send it to me. I don't know what else to say. All right. So, again, please read the article. Don't jump on board. Be cognizant of your own confirmation bias. None of us are perfect, including me. Everybody's subject to confirmation bias to one degree or another, but at least you can attempt to be cognizant of it and try to mitigate it. And that's what I've done. So read this, and I'll talk to you later.